Hello and welcome to the Thursday edition, or as we like to call it around here, the Friday Eve edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand in the chair again today. It was a warm night last night, wasn't it? Jumped in the truck to come to work, and it was still a little sticky out there. 16 degrees. Looks like we're in for some precipitation today. Listening to Alistair Alders, our weather specialist in the morning news, saying there's going to be some, but maybe not enough, maybe not what we wanted. But I think at this point, particularly those who are looking at empty wells or emptying wells in the region, I think any little bit will help at this point. To watch a game last night, not much by the way of change for the Jays after last night's 2-1 loss to Tampa. Now the magic number remains at 3 for the Toronto Blue Jays to clinch a playoff spot in this year's postseason, and 6 to clinch the American League East. There's a 2 o'clock game today. Catch that on Sportsnet. And, of course, as each day gets closer to the end of the season, the anticipation builds about a postseason run for the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, we can't get away from talking about Jimmy Kimmel today, can we? Last night, ABC, canceling the show and saying that he was out of bounds for comments made. This from a CBC article. During a recent monologue, Kimmel said that the United States had hit new lows over the weekend. This is a quote, with MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it, unquote. Kimmel also criticizing President Trump morning of Charlie Kirk, pointing to a video of Trump's comments on the White House lawn. Quotes, in between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House, flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president was taking this, unquote. Then Kimmel said he cut to a clip where Trump responded to reporters asking about how he was doing by pointing to construction ongoing at the White House. Kimmel went on to say, and again I quote, "This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish," unquote. Now, in his monologue, Kimmel, in a roundabout way, was alleging that the person who shot and killed Charlie Kirk was so-called MAGA. Now, I cautioned, as you remember, against this in the early hours after the tragedy. Jimmy Kimmel was not alone in this kind of criticism. I've read many posts and articles that said that the shooter was on the right, was on the left. We don't know a whole lot about this, do we? What was the motive? There's been lots of speculation out there. Some of it may be true. Some of it may not be true. So is this an attack on free speech? Is this about Charlie Kirk at all? Or is this about the ever-growing divide between the left and the right? Is the network holding its talent to account? Or is this cancel culture? Sure, it's something you'll want to discuss in today's open hour. We're going to spend the first hour of the program today talking a little bit about labor. There's a number of different labor situations ongoing in the United States. We heard earlier this week NSGEU and the province announcing a deal after some binding arbitration earlier this week. The NSGEU President Sandra Mullen will join the show later in this hour. Deal done. Dalhousie, DFU members, the Faculty Association, CFA, I should say, ratified a new contract yesterday, back at work today. We will try to connect up with the president of the Dalhousie Student Union. Maren Mealey will be joining the show later. And also today, we're awaiting a call from the president of the Dalhousie Faculty Association with regards to this contract that was ratified by a large margin last night. So some of the goodies in the deal that have been released showing a significant pay rate increase. I think it's 10% over the length of the deal, and some language in there as well dealing with class loads and such. 939 members voting on the deal, 899 in favor. The deal also includes that 10% increase over 3 years, increases to parental leave benefits, and requirements for each faculty to develop workload policies, and I'm quoting here, to ensure more fair and equitable distribution of the workload, according to the association. The agreement also includes 5 days of paid leave for Indigenous faculty to observe cultural and traditional days of importance, While the association said faculty members would return to work today, and they are, the professors are back in the classroom today. Classes that had been canceled will resume on September 23rd. Now, additional schedule changes like dates of exams and so on and so forth, study breaks have yet to be finalized. Johnny Atchison, a second-year student, telling the Canadian press that are we going to have to give up some of our vacation or add to the end of the semester? What's going to happen? We are going to do a big push now to start a course that we're halfway into. Of course, for those of you that are not up to speed on this story, Dalhousie's administration locked out its faculty on August 20th, and the union members began their strike right after that 2 days later. Now, the union had argued in the past that their wages hadn't kept up with inflation. Salaries can vary dramatically, of course, across its seniority and type of instruction and department. At the high end, senior faculty earn about $240,000 a year, and the low end, the salary scale for some tech instructors starts at about $56,000 a year. Very pleased to welcome to the program to kick things off with us today the president of the Dalhousie Faculty Association, and that's David Westwood. Mr. Westwood, appreciate you joining us on a busy day.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time.
So, as I understand it, the deal ratified overwhelmingly last night or yesterday?
It did, yeah. Our vote from the union side came in around noon, and it was an overwhelming vote, I should say, 96%. And the Board of Governors side ratified the deal around 4:30 last night. So, yep, so it's all signed and sealed.
So it's a done deal. Faculty are back in the classrooms today?
Not today. No, the return to work agreement says Tuesday next week is when our classes will resume.
Right.
Of course, some classes have been running all along that are taught by folks in other unions, but yeah, our members need time to reorganize and reorient to a shortened semester. So there's a lot of work to be done in the next few days.
I would imagine. So the faculty are gearing up, and the students can start to see their classes return beginning on Tuesday.
Yes, and so the complicating factor is the University Senate has final authority over academic dates and exam schedules and things. So there's a meeting on Monday to sort out some of those logistics pieces, but the message to students is classes will resume on Tuesday.
Is there enough time to finish this semester given this compressed schedule?
There is. I mean, about 3 weeks of class time will have been lost, and there was some question early on whether the fall reading week would be canceled to compensate. My understanding is the reading week will remain, which is good for students. That's a much-needed break for mental health and well-being. The final exam schedule will probably push up closer toward the normal winter break, I expect, and probably some content will need to be dropped from some classes, and other programs that have a fixed curriculum like nursing, like law, they'll probably have to do some creative juggling to make sure students get all the content they need.
David, obviously a number of concessions made in this negotiation. There always is. The numbers I'm seeing from both your organization and from the school is a 10% increase over 3 years. Was that the biggest kind of stumbling block throughout negotiations? Was an increase in salary?
Well, I mean, it was and it wasn't. I mean, obviously we need to stand firm on the sort of settlement numbers because other universities have settled in that kind of a range, so we didn't want to be left behind. But we kind of knew that would be resolved. Like even early on, there was an opportunity to go to an arbitrator, which I think would have produced a similar result. So for us, the big sticking points were really more on kind of working condition issues. So we fought very hard to get expanded childcare on campus, not just for our own members, but for students and other staff. And that's an area we weren't able to make any progress, unfortunately. I'm very disappointed about that, but it gives us something to build for the future. But we were able to make some progress on converting precarious short-term contract teaching into permanent jobs where those people have been in place for many years at a time. So that's a big win for our members, and I'm happy about that. So overall, I'd say there were some positives, but of course the big downside was the fact we were locked out for a full month, and that's 8% of our salaries taken away because of that. So that's a major concession, and it's unfortunate it came to that, and I hope it doesn't happen again, obviously. But anyway, happy to be through it.
Right, lockouts and strikes and labor disruptions never easy on either side of that discussion. By the large numbers of support of the contract, I'm going to assume that your membership were happy with what they saw, and as much as it's difficult to say that the strike or the lockout or the walkout was worth it.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest challenge for many people is, like, we always knew there would be a settlement at some point, but it's really the fractured relationships, which, as you mentioned, like, whenever there's that kind of disruption, there's sort of some finger pointing, there's some blame, there's some feelings of being abandoned, of being treated unfairly. So, those relationships need to be mended. I don't know when that's going to start. It needs to happen because we are one university that needs to pull in the same direction. So I think feelings are a little raw still, so it may take some time, but I hope we can get back to that place.
So this is, as I understand, it's a 3-year agreement?
It is, yeah. So it'll be backdated to July of this year. So we'll be back at it again in 3 years' time, and let's hope it takes a very different trajectory next time.
That's always the thing with these, right, is that, they go on for so long and you get the deal done, and then you're almost back at it again.
Yes, and our members, really started to organize and mobilize during the job action. We have a lot of time on picket lines to think about other things you'd like to see improved. So right. I think there's a real sense that we're going to plan over the next 3 years and bring some things to the table that we really want to make progress on. And, we'll see where the university's at financially. Obviously, there are challenges. We've, been open, and the university administrators have been very clear that there are financial challenges, and it's going to be difficult times ahead. And I think, the more we can do to sort of advocate and lobby for, sector-wide improvements from federal and provincial funding, I think students deserve to have that. I think the university sector in Nova Scotia is something to be valued and preserved, and I hope, we can play a role in helping to change that kind of narrative.
David, the students throughout this action have been concerned, A, about losing class time, but B, not getting some of the teaching time that they had paid for, and have asked for a rebate from the university for time lost. Does the Faculty Association support that?
Yes, absolutely. I was there. They had a big tuition refund rally last week. I was happy to be a part of that. I mean, the students were very supportive of our position during the lockout, which was very much appreciated and certainly not taken for granted. But, we understand students pay a small fortune in tuition, and if you don't get what you pay for, you do deserve a refund. I think that's fair, and I'm happy to support them in that, and I hope they're successful. I know other universities have issued tuition refunds during strikes or lockouts, so I think they've got a very strong case.
Excited to get back to class?
Well, I personally am not teaching. My job is full-time with the union. Right. So, but all my colleagues I know are very anxious and are hard at work, firing up their computers, getting their syllabi adjusted, making sure that we have a best product as we can give to students this year. It's going to be messy, no question, but I think our members love what they do, and the students deserve a good education, and we're happy to provide what we can this year.
Appreciate your time, David.
Okay, thanks so much.
That's David Westwood, the president of the Dalhousie Faculty Association. Deal done at Dal. We're going to focus a little bit on that tuition rebate request from the student union. Around 10:45 this morning, we'll have a conversation with the president of the Dalhousie Student Union. Maren Mealey will be joining us, so I hope you stick around for that. Going to take our first break here on the Thursday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. On the other side of it, a new collective agreement reached between the province and some NSGEU members. We're going to dig into that with the president of NSGEU. That's Sandra Mullen. She will be your guest when we return. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. Dan Olstrand with you on a Thursday, or as we like to call it, a Friday Eve edition of the program. A statement came into my email box Tuesday, I believe, morning from the province. It was a joint statement, and I'll read a bit of it for you. The following is a joint statement from the Minister of Public Service Commission and the President of the Nova Scotia Government and General Employees Union. The province of Nova Scotia and NSGEU called back to the table by arbitrator Karen Hollett. As a result of this work, an arbitration board issued an order resulting in a new collective agreement. The order binding on both parties, and each side is reviewing the details and release more information once the work is complete. Both parties appreciate, of course, the work of the arbitrator as well as the dedication and collaboration of our respective bargaining committees in bringing this matter to conclusion. Very pleased to welcome the aforementioned president of the Nova Scotia Government and General Employees Union, NSGEU, and that's Sandra Mullen. Sandra, how are you?
Good morning. Great. Thank you.
I guess the first question is, not a lot of detail in that statement, to say the least. What can you share, if you can, more on this?
Sure. Well, we released a highlights document late on Tuesday to our membership.
Right.
So we represent 8,400 folks or so in the civil service bargaining unit. And over the course of the bargaining process last spring, our bargaining team unanimously rejected and this is a greater bargaining team, about 70 folks, rejected the offer unanimously because government was seeking to remove our job security language. That was huge. And the fact that the economic offer, financial package, was not in keeping with other previously agreed to or signed offers to other parties, namely teachers, our healthcare folks, not just nurses, but our admin professionals, support services. Everyone was seeing the pattern that government was saying was 3 and 2. They were seeing an additional amount on the 3. Teachers received an extra 2.5%. Other units received similar in some form or another, whether it was $1 per hour in that way or whether it was a percentage. So we knew that we would hold fast to protecting our job security and seeking the similar economic offer that others had received. So we also sought a 4-year agreement, which is what is in the end. With the arbitrator calling the parties back, we were still determined that we were protecting the job security language that has been in place for near 10 years. So, in fact, at the end of the day, the award does reflect that our job security MOA is intact and not changed, and the economic offer was similar to that of others, with the pattern of 3 and 2 in those 2 years being 24 and 25. But they also came up with the 2.5% adjustment that others had seen in some capacity, and what they have termed it as a special adjustment, meaning similar to market adjustments. This offer goes out to most of the bargaining unit. There are a small number in that 8,400 who had already previously seen a market adjustment. And that can be for different types of work, recruitment retention issues, and, like our trades folks throughout the province, a lot of trades folks are seeing market adjustments because the private sector is paying that much more. So they were able to say those folks have already had an adjustment and they would be subject to the 3% for the most part on April 1 of 24. You see some retroactivity there. And but for the majority of civil service, they're going to get the 3% retroactive to April 1, an additional 2.5% special adjustment back to April 1 of 24. And then the next April would be a 2%, which has been patterned. That, again, is retroactive to April 1 of 25. And then the arbitrator awarded years, what we call years 3 and 4, April 1 of 26 and 27, further 2% in each year. So compounded, we're looking at just over 12% over 4 years.
I was sitting here doing the math as you were reading it all. I'm okay. Let's hope my math is correct. So I was close. So 12% over the 4 years of the deal.
Right.
Ish. Okay.
Just a bit over.
Yes.
And yeah.
Sandra, binding arbitration is always a scary thing, right, for both sides, because, you go into it, you lay out your best case, and then somebody makes a decision and they have to live with it. Was it a bit of a nail-biting time when you went to that?
Absolutely. And our teams are used to this process because you want to try to go through the contract and deal with things at the table that an arbitrator would not deal with. So if we're going to get somewhere on an item, some of those items are best dealt with at the table and leave the monetary for the award. Those are things that, this party says this party says this, and the arbitrator rules. So a lot of the language stuff was previously agreed to prior to going into the process of binding arbitration. Civil servants in this province do not have the right to strike. They do have access to binding arbitration, which means as a result today, or as of the award on Thursday, it is a deal. It is the offer that exists. It's an award, and our members do not vote on a acceptance or rejection process. So the wheels are now in motion to put this in place. And as I say, there are a number of other things in our document that we were pleased to achieve. This is not a big group of folks, but we've also addressed if anyone under the $20 per hour as of April 1 would see a $1 increase. That is language that we have seen in other tables. So this is certainly a good move to increase those making a lower wage. And we've seen some additions to shift and weekend premiums. Let's remember our corrections officers and a number of DNR and a number of folks who work shift. So they would be accessing now. It was $2.35 an hour if they had to do a weekend shift premium, and has now gone up to $3.50. But just one contract ago, that was $1.50. So we're seeing some increases. We're seeing some improved language. And ultimately, we were able to protect the job security, which is absolutely the one issue present at the table that was just non-negotiable.
Sandra, was there
by our committee?
For sure, absolutely. Was there any language in this contract? I've taken lots of calls over the last little while from civil servants concerned about return to work. Was there any language in this new contract about return to work?
That part was never part of an agreement.
Okay.
It was never part of a collective agreement. That's always based on the employer's operational requirements. There are many options that employers and departments would arrange with their employees depending on, right? So it's not part of this collective agreement, and it wasn't part of any previous.
Sandra, we're out of time. Okay. I appreciate yours.
Perfect. Thank you.
Have a fantastic day. That is Sandra Mullen, the president, Nova Scotia General Employees Union, Civil Servants, 8,400 in the bargaining unit through binding arbitration. As she described to us, 4-year deal, just over 12% increase in salaries and some changes to shift premiums for shift workers and some additional language. So labor peace in the civil service, at least in the province, for this 4-year deal. We're going to stop, take a break. Blake is going to join us and update us on what's going on in the news. And I mentioned it with our interview with Sandra. Return to office. Is it back? And are workplaces ready for it to be back? We'll have a conversation with the Senior Vice President of Workplace Advisory at Colliers Canada. Sarah Bramley will be our guest. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show on this Thursday edition of the program. It's looking a little wet out there, and I know that your flower beds, if there's anything left of them, are quite happy with that. And I know we're getting to the end of that season, but we do need the rain, so let's hope that it sticks around for a little bit longer than that. Our last conversation before the break with the president of the Nova Scotia General Employees Union, we were talking about a new agreement reached with the 8,400 civil servants in Nova Scotia. And I was very interested about one of the comments from Sandra Mullen, who said that when asked about return to work legislation, now we've heard this on a number of different occasions where the province has said, like, hey, look, we want to get our people back into the offices, and some business area groups want to see people back in their offices, but there was no. And as Sandra said, there was no and has never been any legislation or language, I guess is the right words, in a collective agreement dealing with return to work. That was interesting to me. And just by chance, our next guest is going to join us to talk about return to work and some of the pitfalls that are befalling people who are actually going back to the office. Very pleased to welcome back to the program Senior Vice President, Workplace Advisory at Colliers Canada, and that's Sarah Bramley. Sarah, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am well. Your organization has just issued a new report. It's entitled "How a Great Office Space Boasts Engagement and Productivity." You went out and did a study on return to work, and I guess the opening question to that is what did you discover? What did you find?
Well, my practice supports organizations across North America figuring out everything to do with their workplaces. So my practice has existed well before pandemic, so we've seen a fascinating change in how people have approached office space over the last several years. What we're seeing now is a lot of return to office mandates from the big banks, from government, from private organizations. There have been, organizations that have been doing this quietly over the years, but it seems fall 2025 is really the time when lots of companies are calling people back. And so what we have found is that a lot of workplaces maybe weren't supporting the ways people were working very well pre-pandemic, and now some organizations are calling people back to that same old space, and work has changed a lot, and so people aren't necessarily having the best experience. So there's lots of things that organizations can do to improve that.
It's interesting because we've obviously had this discussion, Sarah, on this program a number of different times, and people on both sides of the issue suggesting that it's if it's an employee's place to be at the office, whereas some, particularly those that have now discovered that you can work on a hybrid model and it works, suggesting that they're more productive when they are away from the office. One of the interesting things that in your report that kind of jumped off the page at me is that the office itself could be responsible for some of the concerns and consternations about productivity because of the way it's designed and barriers with technology, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot that can impact productivity. There's, work descriptions and work process and, management and all of these things, but the office certainly plays a role. And we like to think of that in terms of barriers and enablers. Like, we just want the office to work well when we come in. If I've put on my business clothes and commuted and come in and set up and gotten childcare and paid for parking, I don't want to have to struggle with the technology. I don't want to have to, be searching the office to find somewhere to sit to work. The office can really get in the way of people doing their jobs. If it's working well, you almost don't even notice it. It just fades into the background. But what people are finding is they're coming in and it's less supportive than the cozy environment they built for themselves at home.
Are people more productive at home? Is that what you discovered? Are they?
I don't think I can say that
right.
Either way. I think that there's a lot that goes into it. People certainly are more engaged when they have flexibility to work from home. People feel that they can accomplish their heads down individual tasks much better from home. When they're free of distractions, they can close a door. Some people have a private office at home and they work from a cubicle in the office. So there's something to be said for that. But part of productivity is collaboration and decision-making and innovation, and a lot of those things are well supported in the office too. So I don't think we can say definitively either way.
Now, Sarah, obviously we've discovered that this can work, right? The pandemic certainly highlighted that for a number of different companies. Do you think that the way that we work has changed to the point where we're going to have to try and figure out how to make this all work together?
Yeah, I think a lot of organizations made some decisions over the last few years, and now trying to bring people back is more difficult because, for instance, they've moved to a more distributed model, matrix organizations. Even if everybody in one location is in the office together, you probably still have people that are traveling or working from other locations. And so there's a lot more virtual connection and collaboration that, when people come in and they're just sitting on Teams or Zoom calls all day, they don't feel like it's worth it. They didn't earn the commute for them to come into the office. And so I think organizations really need to think about that and how to accommodate those changing activities.
Right. Canadian companies obviously are looking at this as we roll through 25 and into 26 and are trying to find a sort of a happy medium, right? Trying to get a strategy that works and get some of these challenges right.
Exactly right. Yeah, and I think the only thing really to do is to, make a decision, and a lot of organizations have, but then to monitor and measure. So actually keep a two-way conversation open with your leaders, your managers, and your employees to understand what's working and what's not working. A lot of the problems that have come up can be addressed through the space, through behavior, through change management, through training and support. So I think the only way out is through, and organizations just need to really keep a finger on the pulse.
Right. Some of the complaints I get is that, there's more distractions at the office than there is at home.
Yes. Yeah, one thing that's come up a few times recently is, I don't know if you know the term misophonia. It's when people have a sensitivity to certain sounds.
Right.
So you've been in your quiet, cozy home office for several years, and then you have to sit next to somebody who's like eating chips or eating an apple. And of course, it goes way beyond that. People taking phone calls from their desks, people walking by. We're just not used to that environment as much anymore. So that will take time to acclimate to.
Right. And, you mentioned the Zooms and those kind of things. We've come to rely on this technology and sometimes have lost the ability to feel comfortable when we're having one of these meetings that we've become accustomed to, that is in front of a screen, when there's actual human beings in the room.
Yeah, we have to kind of relearn body language and
right.
Manners and being around people all the time. It's definitely a shift.
It certainly is. Do you think that that hybrid work is here to stay? Is this something we're going to see in the future?
I think some manner of hybrid will always be around. Like I said, my practice has been around for 15 years. So we called it telework previously. We were doing flexible work and desk hoteling and all the jargony terms well prior to the pandemic. And we work with organizations all the time that have continued to remain hybrid. The ones that declare they're returning to office get splashed in the headlines, but I think there is a lot more variety out there. So I think it will still be around, but each organization kind of has to draw a line in the sand and decide what their future holds.
Sarah, appreciate your time.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
As Sarah Bramley from Colliers Canada, Senior Vice President of Workplace Advisory. I think it's here to stay, people. I really do. I know we've had this discussion plenty times on the program about the pros and the cons of work from home or work from office. Some of the things that I think have happened during this shift in workplace mentality is that we've come, as I mentioned to Sarah, we've come to rely on Zooms, I think, way too much. That instead of a quick phone call or a quick email, or how about just a quick conversation standing in a door frame with somebody, we schedule 30 minutes, we have a Zoom meeting, and it's wild. That being said, I think, and this is just my opinion, I think that there's something to be said about human interaction, actual interacting with a human being in the same room, as opposed to on the screen or on the phone. And I think that we're probably not going to ever get back to where we were, where it was 9 to 5, get to your office and stay there all day and then go home. I think we're probably going to see some changes to that. What I hope follows that is some guidelines and some, I don't even know if it's legislation, but maybe some best practices that because we're able to work from home and because we are mobile and because we can take our laptops home with us and because we can function our jobs at home outside of the work hour, that work hour needs to get respected. Because I know a lot of people that work a 9 to 5 and then they go home and they have supper and then they open their laptop and go back to work, right? And I don't think they're getting paid for it. And that's not right. We're going to stop and take a break. When we come back, we're going back to Dalhousie University. Classes to resume at that institution on Tuesday. Labor Peace, a conversation with the Dalhousie Student Union President, Maren Mealey, when we return. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. All right, it wasn't by design, but it just feels like this whole first hour of the Thursday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show, we've been talking about labor situations and work, but there's certainly a lot of news happening with regards to what's happening with the public service that we heard from NSGEU. We also heard from the Dalhousie Faculty Association earlier this hour, and one of the conversations that we had there was about the students and their demand for some salary rebates with the number of days lost because of the lockout situation at Dalhousie University. And we're very pleased to welcome back to the program from the Dalhousie Student Union President, and that's Maren Mealey. Maren, how are you?
Good. How about you?
You've been on the show a lot this week.
I know it's been a busy week, hasn't it?
It is. I bet you didn't expect you'd be doing this much media when you took that job on.
No, not at all. But hey, here we are.
So let's start there. I guess the very first question is students have to be happy that this situation now behind everybody and things will get somewhat back to normal on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable relief for students. I think even having the certainty of school being back on is huge. Folks knowing that they'll be able to access their faculty and classes again will be huge. The tone on campus is definitely, there's a lot of relief there. Right.
So, and we've talked about this in the past, and I'm curious to see if you're going to continue to pursue it, and that is, of course, trying to get some of your tuition back because of those lost days. Are you still planning to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So while the lockout has ended, which is incredible, and that our faculty will be back, classes will be back on, we still have a lot of class time that was missed. It's 3 weeks of classes that are missed for students. That represents close to 21% of a semester. And so what we're asking for is 21% off of our tuition, right? And so that fight doesn't end. Students are still upset about that. Students are still willing to mobilize around that. And an end to the lockout does not mean an end to students demanding that their investment in their education is respected.
Students are set to mobilize and holding events to push this message, right?
Yeah, exactly. I actually just came into a building to take this call now from a sit-in in the Dal Quad right now of students letter writing, asking about tuition refunds, sitting outside. And so that has not changed. Students are actively mobilizing even today as we speak.
Even out in the rain.
Even out in the rain, there's some big tents set up. People are trying to stay dry. But if you're having students turn out in the rain, you know that
right.
People are willing to do it.
Right, absolutely. And not in the dorm and having a little nap, getting ready for class. That being said, Maren, you and I talked last time. There was some word that students were leaving Halifax and going home as this labor dispute was going on. Obviously, they're coming back now, and things will get back into full swing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, folks are traveling back around now. Having about a week is really helpful for students to be able to make those plans. I know that there were some students who did end up withdrawing in the process, so that's unfortunate. But that's what happens when students don't feel like they're being respected. But people are coming back on campus. It's feeling more lively. And I assume that next week on Tuesday, we'll see campus full with students as classes are back on.
How about homecoming?
Yeah, I mean, that's coming up soon. That's always a thing. We'll trust that students are able to handle themselves well in that process. And I know a lot of students are planning on going to the Magnetic World concert that's happening that same weekend.
Right. So it'll be a busy time, not only with people getting back and getting geared up with all those events that are planned surrounding that event.
Yeah, of course.
Maren, I appreciate your time. I wish you the very best in your studies this semester, and hopefully we won't have to talk as much.
Thanks. Yeah, I also hope that we don't have to talk as much anymore. It's lovely to talk about some good news.
Well, it's good to see students getting active in their education and holding some of the power at the campus to account. And I wish you the very best in your struggle to try and get some of that tuition rebate.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
That is Maren Mealey, who is, of course, the president of the Dalhousie Student Union. I would imagine this weekend might be a fun weekend at campus now that the specter of losing the semester is off. As we heard earlier in the hour, if you weren't listening, as when it comes to the semester itself, our president of the Dalhousie Faculty Association, David Westwood, telling us that classes will begin on Tuesday. Professors are gearing up for that now. He was under the impression that the fall study break, is that what they still call it, is still on at this point, but the decisions on how to make up for those weeks lost are still with the school, and that meeting is supposed to happen on Monday. So we'll learn more about that, and hopefully the students will get what I think they deserve it, right? I think it's, if it was you or I that had paid a whole bunch of money for something and didn't get, a quarter of it or a third of it, you probably would be upset, A, and B, you'd probably want your money back, at least some of it. So hopefully they can come to some sort of an agreement with the university on some sort of a tuition rebate or something along those lines to try and make that good. Now that the situation at Dalhousie University is coming to an end, word that there's maybe labor disruption now at SMU. We're going to, after the 12 o'clock or 12:30 news, rather, we're going to have a conversation with the president of CUPE Local 3912, who will be joining us to tell us about part-time faculty who have now voted in favor of a strike at SMU. So we end one and looks like we're heading into another. It's always something going on, isn't there? We're going to get ready to take the break here at the top of the hour. On the other side of it, of course, it's time for the open hour. There's a lot to discuss out there today. I'm curious as to your thoughts on some of the things that we've discussed this week. And I'm also curious to hear from you with regards to this situation that unfolded yesterday with Jimmy Kimmel and ABC. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, the late night host show canceled. And indefinitely, after he made some comments about surrounding the Charlie Kirk shooting. Now, he didn't say anything about Charlie Kirk himself, but he did make some allegations about MAGA and those supporters and them trying to spin the events of that tragic day into something that is to make it to point at the other side. I'll have the exact quotes coming up here after the news, but ABC shutting him down, saying that it was inappropriate and canceled him indefinitely. That has created a furor, both sides of the aisle, so to speak. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, on his social platform, saying this was a good thing, putting canceled in caps. And saying that it's there's 2 down, 2 to go, so to speak. I'm paraphrasing, of course. And many in the Hollywood world and on the Democratic side of the aisle saying that this is an infringement on free speech. So my question to you is this: is it an attack on free speech? Is this about Charlie Kirk at all, or is this about the ever-growing divide between the left and the right? Is the network holding its talent to account, or is this pure and simple cancel culture? I'm sure it's something you're going to want to talk about when we open up the phone lines after the news at the top of the hour. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The open hour after the break. All right, welcome back. It's Thursday. It's time now for the open hour, your chance to talk about whatever it is on your mind. The lines are open, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Lots to discuss today, obviously, as we roll along. We just had a conversation in the last half hour about the ongoing situation over at Dalhousie. I don't think we've ever asked you the question. And maybe that's just a bad one on me, but the students at Dalhousie are asking for a rebate in their tuition due to the lockout, strike, whatever you want to call it, at Dalhousie, which is now over. Do you think that they have a legitimate beef? Do Do you think that the university should pony up some cash as they didn't get, 3 weeks of classes that they had paid for? 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. We also, in the last hour, had a discussion about return to work, and I know this is a subject that we've broached before here in the open hour. Our guest suggesting that it's probably here to stay. We've probably changed the way that we do business, and it's likely going to see hybrid as part of the discussion moving forward. And hybrid, of course, is work from home, work from the office a couple days a week, that kind of thing. It's also very interesting with our discussion with the president of NSGEU. We had a discussion here on the show a number of times that the province was trying to have its civil servants come back to work full time, like back to the office. And a new collective agreement was reached earlier this week with the help of some binding arbitration for 8,400 civil servants, and there was no language included in that collective agreement dealing with return to the office. And Senator Mullen saying there never has been, which is very interesting to me. It would have been something you would think would be in there if it's going to be something that is going to become an issue. Return to the office, a good or a bad idea? 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. And, of course, lots of people talking today about the decision made late yesterday, just before taping, as I understand it. ABC and its parent company canceling Jimmy Kimmel at the very last minute. In fact, I saw some quotes from some of the guests that were already in the green room and had their makeup on. Apparently, that is an indefinite thing, at least at this point. The consternation comes from the comedian's Monday night monologue, where he said, and I quote, "New lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it." Unquote. Kimmel also criticizing, this from a CBC article, by the way, Kimmel also criticizing Trump mourning of Kirk, pointing to a video of Trump's comments on the White House lawn. He said, and I again quote, "In between finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew flags at half staff, which got some criticism, but on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this," unquote. Kimmel said, before he cut to a clip where Trump responded to reporters asking about how he was doing by pointing to construction ongoing at the White House. Kimmel said, and again I'm quoting, "This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish," unquote. In his monologue, and I said this earlier, in a roundabout way, my opinion anyway, it looked like he was trying to allege that the person who shot and killed Charlie Kirk was the so-called MAGA member. Now, I cautioned about this, if you remember, I cautioned about this early on in the days after the tragedy. Kimmel not alone in this, though, right? I've read many different posts on social media and articles and commentaries and podcasts that said the shooter was on the right, the shooter was on the left. I come back to this. We don't know much about this so far. What was the motive? There's been lots of speculation, obviously. Some of it may have been true, some of it maybe not. So my question is this an attack on free speech? Is this about Charlie Kirk at all? Or is this about the ever-growing divide between the left and the right? Is the network holding its talent to account? Or is this cancel culture? And what I'd like to add to that is there's been a lot of discussion about the Charlie Kirk case since that tragic day in Utah. Lots of people putting lots of blame in a lot of different areas. But what's not being discussed, in my opinion, is the level of gun violence in the United States. We're very quick to try and blame. We're very quick to try and speculate. But we're not addressing the underlying issue here, is that gun violence, let's face it, has become normalized in the United States. And my concern is, the old saying goes, when the United States sneezes, Canada catches a cold. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Again, 1-877-801-8255 or 902-405-6000. Let's go to the phones. We welcome Rick to the show. Rick, how are you?
Hey, morning, Dan. Look, I don't know if you saw the FBI release in which they included emails from the alleged shooter to his roommate/partner. And in those emails, it was quite clear that this guy hated Charlie Kirk for his stand on trans/gay. Charlie Kirk was, I guess a family man, and all that. So the FBI has already released that.
Okay.
And those are, I guess, definitive, if you can, believe the FBI. The second thing, do you have free speech on your show or Todd's show, or are you subject to the guidelines of Rogers? And,
well, you always are, right? I mean, ultimately, you have to, everybody has a boss, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I can tell you, Rick, and with all honesty, I can tell you that we've been doing this a long time, and you well know that. Been here for the extent of the 20 years that this radio station has been on board, and I can't remember an occasion where Rogers has come.
Right?
Yeah, I can't remember an occasion where somebody came in and said you can't talk about that. I cannot.
No, because you guys are well aware of what you can talk about, and actually also what you can let us talk about.
Right.
Okay, I've been canceled by Rick Howe, many times in the past, and Todd and everybody else for saying something that may have. But what I'm trying to get at here is that ABC is a private company.
It's a public company, actually. It's owned by Disney.
No, what I mean by a private company is they're not owned by the government.
Right.
Okay,
but the license is, right?
The license is,
right.
But what I'm trying to get at here is the amendments to the Constitution. I can't remember which one it is, the Second Amendment, Third Amendment.
I think it's the First Amendment for free. I think free speech is number one. Yep.
Okay, is that free speech for the media? I guess. But anyway, it's to protect the citizens from the government. Okay, so ABC has the right to determine who else has been canceled. Stephen Colbert lost his show. I think The View lost their show. I mean, lots of different shows have lost. People have lost their show. All right. So what Jimmy Kimmel said to me is, a function of what ABC thought he should say. So it's not anybody's fault in terms of the First Amendment. Okay, it doesn't. And to hear Chuck Schumer on your show this morning being quoted about the First Amendment and this being a First Amendment right, to me is crazy, because it's not the government who canceled Jimmy Kimmel.
Well,
he's not canceled.
Some would suggest it is, right? Some would suggest that the FCC is an arm of the government, and that again, lots of speculation, right, Rick? We really don't know what happened. We weren't in the room.
No, we do know. We know a lot that is just being obfuscated by this particular claiming that he's MAGA. All right, his parents were strong Republicans, and he, I don't know about you, but with lots of people I know, never had the same political leanings as their parents.
I don't. Absolutely. My father and I don't agree on politics at all.
Exactly.
Right?
So, and same in many families, including mine. So we're there's no evidence of that. The guy hated Jimmy Kimmel. The guy hated Charlie Kirk for what he did. And the irony, is that Charlie Kirk was shot because of his free speech. In other words, the way he, I don't know how many times you've watched Charlie Kirk, I watched him quite a few times, and because I was in university and I participated in many debates on various subjects. So he to me was one of the brave people. But anyway,
all right, Rick. Appreciate the call, sir.
Bye-bye.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The open hour continues after the break. All right, welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. Dan Olstrand along with you here. It is the open hour. The lines are open. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Lots to talk about today, the open hour. You can talk about whatever it is on your mind, of course. Lots of discussion happening today on the air, in the social media channels, and in various other places about the decision yesterday by ABC and its parent company to cancel Jimmy Kimmel. Based on some comments he made surrounding the Charlie Kirk shooting. Didn't say anything about Charlie Kirk himself, but made some comments about MAGA, and by extension, that goes to the President of the United States. The company said that was out of bounds and have suspended him indefinitely. My question to you is this. Is this an affront to freedom of free speech? I was going to say freedom of expression, different. Free speech, or is this just pure and simple cancel culture? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go to June. June, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you loud and clear. What's on your mind?
Okay. Well, I just want to just go back to the incident that happened a couple of months ago with regard to a simple preacher man who wanted to have a couple of hours at Fort Needham over in Halifax.
Yeah, I remember the incident.
Yeah, thank you. And based on a couple of people complaining against it, they went ahead and they canceled his ability to be able to do that. Not only did that happen in Nova Scotia, but it happened in Prince Edward Island. It happened in New Brunswick, Quebec. As you saw, there was a riot outside that because he was in a building. They wouldn't even give him a piece of the building. So stand that beside Charlie Kirk and freedom of speech. Where's our freedom of speech in Canada? If I were to mention the fact that it's very difficult to talk about Charlie Kirk without using the name God, because Charlie Kirk believed in a Savior, Jesus Christ. And to say something like that on the radio these days automatically and pretty quickly causes the phone to be disconnected, because mainstream media is afraid, very afraid, and not only mainstream media, but the public as a whole, because Canada is so far from God that if we are to really look at it, it's Charlie's message that they hate it, because he was for a family, raising a family peaceably, to have children.
But June,
what was so wrong with his message? The
issue here is like Jimmy Kimmel didn't attack Charlie Kirk at all on what he was saying, right? He was taking a shot at the people that are trying to spin this story.
Okay, and the people that are trying to spin the story is what he was trying to do is to make people believe that this boy was MAGA when it's very clear that he wasn't, because
we don't know that, June. We do not know that.
Okay, but with all due respect, if
Absolutely.
he was at his parents' place, his parents turned him in.
Right. But to say that this boy wasn't not male, is not. We don't know. We do not know.
Okay. His girlfriend or boyfriend, I'm not sure what was, right?
That we know.
Whatever.
That, and you're correct. We know that, but we don't know that the shooter was.
Okay, the values of Trump would not be in line with his lifestyle. Do you agree with that?
Well, the values certainly. I think he's been very forthright saying that. But does that get Jimmy Kimmel canceled because of what he said about MAGA?
Well, when Disney would go ahead and make that decision, there must have been some really strong backlash against it, but Canada, we're not a Christian country. The United States tends to more towards the things of God right? Time for Canada to, take a real look at itself, because when we're starting to cancel it, simple preachers, in our country, we need to really look at ourselves and say, what are our values?
Right.
Appreciate
the call, June.
Thank you very much for taking my call.
Have a fantastic day.
Bye.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255 is the number. Let's, where are we here? Go to Barry. Barry, how are you?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
I'm okay. What's on your mind?
The working from home issue.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little disappointed when employers started requiring their staff to come back to the office. I think with this day and age and the technology that we have, if you can do your work from home, then I think you should be allowed to do that.
Okay.
And for main concern I have these days is the global warming and the environment and the pollution. And when you have a commute, for somebody that gets out in the middle of winter and starts a coal car and sits in traffic for a half an hour to go up on the 10th floor of an apartment building, if they have the type of job where they can do that on their computer from home, there's an environmental benefit from that. And you're not heating an empty building all night. And so in a lot of cases, an empty house all day. So I think there should be credit given by, employers or even in this case, HRM, for any employer that has an employee working from home. I think that's a savings to the municipality. They don't have to deal with all the traffic and the street cleaning and all the rest of it.
Right, Barry. So, and I understand where you're coming from, Barry. I really do. But what do you say to the person that has to come to the office and has to do their job and has to pay the gas and has to heat their car and has to have lunch and has to do all that stuff and getting paid same as the person that's sitting at home?
Well, that's a choice.
No, it's not. I don't have a choice. I have to be here.
No, but nobody forced you to take that job. I mean, you could have been a lawyer or whatever.
I wish I was a lawyer, to be honest.
Yeah.
All right, Barry, we're up against the break. No, Barry, Barry, I understand where you're coming from, and I get the environment, and I get we're trying to get people out of cars. But there are other considerations, too, that there are people that have to come to the office, and if we're going to give credits to one, should we give credits to the other?
Well, you take the Peninsula of Halifax, there's very little manufacturing and that sort of thing. It's mostly office work. And I'm saying that in a condition where you can have the work done from home.
Right.
And in your case, I mean, there has been situations where a radio announcer has worked from home.
100%. We did it here.
Yep. Well, there you go.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Up against the break. Have a fantastic day, okay?
You too. Bye-bye.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I'm thinking way back to the beginning of the pandemic. We did a talk show from down South Shore because of the restrictions. It can be done. It's at least, and I only can speak from our example, it's a logistical nightmare. And if we're going to give credits, and Barry raises some great points, like you're out of a car, you're not having to heat an office, but then there's going to be an office there anyway, at least one would think, unless you're completely working from home. So then are we, heating a space for no reason? And if we're going to give credits or whatever you want to call it, breaks, incentives to people to stay home, then what about the person that has to go to work? How about the guy that works on the construction site? You can't swing a hammer from home. Just things to think about. Well, I guess you can swing a hammer from home, but you might miss the nail. We're going to continue the open hour on the other side of the break. The telephone number is 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. The open hour continues. The telephone number is 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Back to the phones. We welcome Dan to the show. Dan, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. What's on your mind?
I just want to talk about the Jimmy Fallon thing.
Jimmy Kimmel.
Jimmy Kimmel, sorry.
Right.
I was kind of disappointed driving to work this morning, listening to your guys' newscast, kind of making it seem like he was fired for the clip of Donald Trump responding to Charlie Kirk with the ballroom and stuff at the White House.
Right.
I mean, I don't really think that's why he was fired. He was passing blatant lies on the air about the shooter or the alleged shooter being a MAGA supporter when his parents have come out and said he was left-leaning. And we've seen in his text message with his partner or the person he was living with that he was calling his family MAGA, where he was not MAGA. And I just don't get, like, how would you kill the leader of your movement? I mean, Charlie Kirk is one of the biggest faces in the MAGA movement, and he was being set up probably to be one of the presidential candidates to continue that movement
I get it.
the next few years.
I can understand where you're coming from. Yep.
But yeah, and then I just heard you on the call saying that we don't know that he wasn't MAGA. I think
has he said it?
MAGA.
Well, see, now there's the problem, Dan, is that we don't know, and to say that we do know is the problem, right? Have we heard from him himself saying that he was not a member of MAGA? No. Have we heard that he's left, right, center? I don't care. Have we heard from that? No, we have not.
Okay, that is a fair point. I just think the cast this morning was kind of misleading, in my opinion.
All right. Appreciate the call. Okay. Have a good one.
Thanks. Have a good day.
902-405-6001, 877-801-25. That is what I cautioned against on day one of this, and I will continue to caution against this until we hear from said individual himself, right? Because like I know one of our callers said, because your parents are this, does that mean you are? No. Because your wife is something, are you? No. I know many families in Canada that one person is strong conservative, the other is NDP. Completely opposite sides of the political spectrum, right? So I'm going to say, and I'm going to continue to say until we know that we don't. We just don't. And until we hear from this individual, we won't. That's all I said. 902-405-6000. Let's go back to the phones. Welcome Nicole to the show. Nicole, how are you?
I'm well, Dan. How are you?
I am good. What's on your mind today?
I just want to touch on the dark day yesterday in Nova Scotia. With
what a terrible story, right?
That came out of Waterville. Yeah. Absolutely. And you had some callers yesterday that were, how does this happen? How did it go on for so long? How did it go uninvestigated? How did we not know this was happening? Where was all of the accountability? And so I want to take this opportunity while this story is fresh to explain to people how this happens, because it's been happening for the last 12 months inside of the Department of Education. And if you've heard me call in before, last October, when the Department of Education wanted to put out a new policy code of conduct for public consultation, they put it out and explicitly removed sexual abuse, sexual misconduct, and sexual harassment protections inside of that policy code of conduct. Those aren't things that just lightly get removed. They were removed. And not only were they removed, it was then put out to the public for consultation without showing people that they were removed. They completely reformatted the document. So it's not like you could redline something and compare it to see what had changed. It was a different document, completely reformatted. The language was different. It was incredibly misleading, but they removed it. And I caught it, and I kept my foot on their neck from November until April. And every time I reached out, every notice that was sent was met with complete silence. And it was only through an investigation, not even investigation, because it wouldn't go that far, a complaint to the Office of the Ombudsman. Did the Ombudsman then say, well, the policy team got that and instructed everybody not to comment on it? Mm-hmm. And the Ombudsman's office, having this information, knowing that those protections were removed, quietly put back in, thank God. But I don't want to focus on the fact that they were put back in. I still want to focus on the fact that they were removed and it went for public consultation in the first place. The Office of the Ombudsman, looking at that, having that trail, still looked at it and said, not worth investigating, can't look at it. Even if we could look at it, the policy's not in effect, and the minister has agreed that they will only look at it once a child has been harmed. So when we want to take a step back and we look at what happened in Waterville, It was the failure to act. It was the failure to respond. It was the failure to protect vulnerable children that led to this 30-year issue. And we have it happening right now, and it's all happening under a veil of silence. And even worse, when you go through my correspondence and you start lining up the dates, you will see that all of the original documentation that explicitly showed where those protections were removed from children were taken off the website. They've been scrubbed from the internet. You can't find them anywhere. I have copies of them, but you can't find those documents. There's no transparency around this. And the bigger issue, again, because conflict of interest is my favorite word this week, this all started under the previous Minister of Education, who was Becky Drouin, who is now the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. And Brendan Maguire still has not answered for what the heck happened here. And it's just, I've emailed multiple reporters who were reporting on the ongoing policy code of conduct as it was evolving. Not one of them have responded. No one's looking at this. No one wants to put this on the record. And I don't understand why. But in light of Waterville, and I've said this from day one, something's going to happen and everybody's going to go, how did this happen? How did we get here? Where were all the oversight bodies? And I have a very solid chain of communication that shows exactly how this happens. So I guess my question is, as a body of citizens, what do we do?
Right.
If there's only, like, what do we do? I'm doing the best that I can, but I'm one person and they look at me like a squeaky wheel. But the evidence is damning. It's very damning. I don't know how they get out from underneath what has already been documented.
Nicole, always a pleasure. Appreciate the call.
Thanks, Dan.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I know that the Department of Education listens to the program quite closely, and I'm hoping that somebody will respond to that. In fact, I think maybe it's time for us to reach out to Minister Maguire and to get his thoughts on it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Where are we now? Let's go back to Barry. Barry, how are you?
Not too bad. First off, if J.D. Vance did the next show that Charlie Kirk normally does, and one of the things he did say is, if you hear anybody saying something derogatory about Charlie Kirk, notify their employer. If that is not a First Amendment right, or you have an opinion. And there was a minister that they're putting on all channels who was speaking out against the shooting of Charlie Kirk. But he said the most insulting thing to black people in the United States was to see flags flown at half-mast to a man who says a black person is not the equal of a white. And he has every right. Now, I don't know what kind of retaliation is going to be against him, but if you listen to Charlie Kirk, he's a white supremacist who preaches hatred. And there's nowhere in the Bible that it says we are superior to the black or to Asians or anybody else.
Barry, but what we're discussing here is Jimmy Kimmel losing his show potentially over something, and he didn't even mention Charlie Kirk.
No, but if you insult Donald Trump, your history. And the other one was they got Stephen Colbert, like he called it, that case that they settled with Donald Trump. They had 20 different lawyers they interviewed, and they said, there's no way Donald Trump could have won that. What that was a bribe, because there was a big merger going, and they wanted it to go through. And by doing that, they got Trump what he wanted, and their merger is going through. That could be quick, and it's strictly a bribe. And this is Donald Trump cannot handle criticism. And like I said, if he's doing it to people that are just saying that Charlie Kirk's a bigot and you lose your job.
He didn't say that Charlie Kirk was a bigot, though, right?
Oh, he was.
Yeah, but he didn't. Barry, we have to be very clear. Jimmy Kimmel did not say that.
No, but he criticized. What I'm saying is they're trying to close out any dissension at all. That's why, why would you tell people if somebody dies that if you talk bad of them at work, you're going to lose your job? Isn't that ridiculous? And you can see watch J.D. Vance said, that's the truth. I'm not lying to you. And there's thousands of Americans, they figured out so far, have lost their jobs for speaking poorly against Charlie.
Well, I haven't seen that number. Hey,
make
Barry,
you lose your job. That's cancel culture, and there's that fact more than Jimmy Kimmel proves what the whole thing is, doesn't it?
Barry, appreciate it, sir. Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The open hour continues after the break. All right, welcome back. A few minutes left here in the open hour. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Very quick email before we head back to the phones. This is comes to us, I think, from Michelle, who says, why is there any discussion about an entertainer, a night show host whose primary purpose is to entertain, amuse, and make us laugh, a topic of newsworthy interest? No matter the way you peel this onion or create a substantiation, ABC decided to preempt the show indefinitely. Thus, if there's cancellation or stifling freedom of speech, it's on ABC's shoulders and no one else. Were there any outside influences, he questions. Maybe there was. However, the final decision comes from ABC executives. I believe this clearly demonstrates ABC's lack of fortitude to stand by freedom of speech and deny cancel culture. Kimmel wasn't canceled, nor was he fired. This rhetoric has taken root from misinformed news outlets. I don't disagree with that. But anyway, the show was preempted indefinitely. Semantics, my friend. Semantics. Why do we allow entertainers' voices to become so important? Late-night TV hosts are employed and paid to entertain us, and the proverbial court jesters, no more, no less. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's go to John, who's a first-time caller. John, how are you? John, are you there?
I'm very well. You?
Oh, there you are. Welcome to the show. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, how you doing?
Good. What's on your mind?
I just want to address the recent news that came out yesterday in
Right.
relation to the Nova Scotia Youth Centre.
Right, Waterville.
I think I would want to question, where is Becky Drouin and where are Premier Houston, given the severity of what's happening? And yet we've got no comment from the Premier's office or the Department of Justice. So I'll leave it at that. I just wanted to bring that out and understand, why our politicians feel that. Is this because it's a fringe group of people? There's a lot of survivors, a lot of victims out there.
Right. Over
and
400.
yet we hear nothing from our provincial government.
Good point, John. Appreciate it,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Where are we here? Let's go to Keith. Keith, how are you?
Good morning, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm well. What's on your mind, sir?
Oh, I just wanted to make a comment, just briefly on this Jimmy Kimmel.
Sure.
What a great way to distract from the Epstein files. Him and Colbert, and now possibly Trump has put it out there in his way that he does, that maybe Fallon and Myers should be the next two to go.
Hey, he put it on his social media platform last night.
Yeah, so, that's just Donald. That's what he does. He puts little tidbits of, dangles a little carrot out there for everybody to chase. And media seems to, a lot of people seem to chase the fresh rabbit. And this is kind of a fresh rabbit. And the Epstein thing is still there, but it's a good way to sort of put it away on the back burner. Nobody's paying that much attention because, unfortunately, Charlie Kirk lost his life. There is a lot of attention being paid to that, which is unfortunate, that he had to lose his life. I'm not for anybody losing their life the way he did, no matter where you lean politically. And, the other thing was the working from home and not working from home.
Sure.
I just think, if you are fortunate enough that you can work from home and do your work on your computer or on your phone or whatnot, if you have that kind of a job, then I think that maybe that's a good idea that people do stay home and work from home. And the other people that don't have, they're not fortunate that they can't do that. They have to go to work. It's kind of like, well, that's just kind of how it is. And I'm not trying to say that like in a flippant way, but it is kind of true. If you have to go to work, then that's your job, and then you have to go to work. But if people that can stay home, they don't have to go because they can do it at home, well, it kind of saves a lot on different things. Saves on people coming to work sick and spreading stuff around, and it maybe cuts down on the congestion of traffic. It's bad enough as it is. So there's that. And it's probably good for the environment because you're not polluting as much. So anyway, those are the two things I wanted to comment on.
Appreciate it, Keith.
Thank you.
902-405-6000. Let's welcome Sean to the program. Sean, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. How you doing?
I'm well. What's on your mind today?
Just this whole Jimmy Kimmel, Charlie Kirk thing.
Right.
And how, whether he's left wing or right wing. I understand your point, Dan, 100%, that we just don't know. And if we don't know either way, I don't think your radio station should have published it the way they did either.
Publish
because
what?
If we don't know, then we don't know, right? Like, so in saying that, like the caller said, he kind of said what I said. Like, if we watch the video and listen to what his parents have to say about it, I won't get into the detail, but they did say that the last couple of years, his son became very left-wing and very I'll just leave it at that. I think people should watch it for themselves instead of taking clips from either side. Watch it for yourself, and then the other thing is there was the word fascist written on the bullet. Now, what do they call Donald Trump? What does the left wing like to spew out there that Donald Trump is a fascist, right? So there's a lot of evidence. We can't say either way, but there's a lot of evidence that leans each way. So, and then that just brings to the caller Barry there that just called and called Charlie Kirk a white supremacist, right? You didn't push back at that at all. Charlie Kirk has never once claimed to be a white supremacist. The only people that call him a left supremacist are the left wing, and you didn't push back on that at all. You let him carry on like he was a white supremacist. So I think it should go both ways because, Dan, Charlie Kirk was not a white supremacist. You can watch Charlie Kirk videos. He quotes Martin Luther King. He took some of his philosophy and brought it into his.
Right.
And to say that he was those things, what do you think the black people that appreciate Charlie Kirk? Because there's a lot of black people that respect Charlie Kirk and stood strongly behind him because he was against DEI, and it wasn't because he was merit. You should be promoted in your job, in your career, in not by your skin color, whether you're white, black, Asian, whatever. It should be on merit, not your skin color. That's why people call him such a racist, which isn't a race thing. It's just merit should outplay anything in any job. Charlie Kirk's message was trying to reach the people like Barry and talk about it, because when people stop talking, when marriages stop talking, divorce happens. When people start talking, hate happens. Like, Dan, for example, me and you, we have extremely opposite, different political views.
We do.
But we talk. We talk, and I generally respect you, and I care about you and Todd. So, and it's because we talk. We have dialect with each other. We gain respect for each
Sean,
other.
I don't mean to cut you off, Sean, but
and
that's what I said at the beginning of the segment was that, all of this discussion over partisanship and what or who this person was or who that person was or where they lived politically, what's not being discussed here is the rise of gun violence in the United States, and that we've resorted to, if we have a disagreement like you and I have on a number of different occasions, now it's becoming normalized that we take it a next step further, and that's wrong.
And I understand that, Dan, but if we look in the past, like when Joe Biden was in, did any Republicans try to execute a left wing? And you say, the Gretchen Whitmer thing. Well, that turned out to be an FBI.
Well, how about Nancy Pelosi's husband?
Well, we don't even know, because that is I won't.
Right, he got hit in the head with a hammer because of his last name.
Well, that's Dan. We won't get into that because that could go either way. That's
all right. Anyway, Sean, I don't want to cut you off, brother. We're up against the break. I appreciate it, man. I really do.
All right, thanks, Dan.
That's going to wrap it up for the open hour. Appreciate everybody's opinion. I really do. I really try to listen to everybody and really try to get an idea of where everybody sits on it. And sometimes these conversations are not easy, and I'll say that very publicly. But it's, I think, important for us to have these kind of conversations. We're going to stop. We're going to take a break. The show continues on the other side of this. When we come back, school lunch program. It's been expanded. It's now into middle schools and junior highs. How's it going? We'll get a conversation with the Executive Director of Nourish Nova Scotia, Aimee Gasparetto, when we come back. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. Back in minutes. All right, welcome back. Hour number 3 of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. Wet day out there, but I don't see a whole lot of people complaining about it. I know we need the water. We need the dampness. We need those wells to get filled back up. We need the forest to get good soaking. And hopefully, and I'm crossing my fingers after our conversation with Premier Houston earlier this week, that the officials are keeping a close eye on some of those areas that are still closed to travel in the woods. The woods ban still in effect for like almost, if not half, of Nova Scotia. I hope that when we get to these kind of wet and foggy and humid days that we've had, that they're keeping a close eye on there, so we can open up as much of Nova Scotia as we can to the to people to go and enjoy. I know the fire ban, I think we can live without until October 15th, but it would be nice to get into the woods in Shelburne County and Lunenburg County and Yarmouth County and all the others that are currently closed to foot traffic and to vehicle traffic. We've talked about this in the past. We talked about it when kids went back to school. This from the CBC, Nova Scotia's expanded school lunch program, including now a revamped menu and streamlined ordering this year. It's also offered now for elementary, middle, and junior high schools in the province after launching last fall in some 250 schools. Now there are 334 schools and about 104,000 students taking part in the program. Very pleased to welcome to the program the Executive Director of Nourish Nova Scotia. That's Aimee Gasparetto. Aimee, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Now, I had a conversation with the Education Minister on the beginning of school, and I asked him the question that many kids were asking about that menu and what's changed this year. And he said that they had some kind of focus groups. They talked to kids, and there's no cauliflower on the menu because the minister doesn't like it.
Yeah, well, I don't know what the cauliflower per se, but the menu's changed. I mean, I would say it's expanded.
Right.
And definitely in our conversations with the province, we did hear about student engagement. And I think that engagement has happened in a whole bunch of different ways and is happening informally in school cafeterias where kitchen staff are getting feedback from students. But yes, the province did engage students in feedback. We were also hearing a lot of feedback on the menu items. And so some of the existing menu items have been tweaked in terms of spices and things that go into making that recipe. Some of the side dishes have been changed, and then there's about 10 entirely brand new menu items based on what we were hearing from community members, and then more to come. So I think there are still new menu items that are going to be added as the school year goes on.
The big one that I'm hearing from kids is there's chicken nuggets now.
Exactly, yeah. Chicken nuggets and potato wedges.
Right.
So that one we heard lots about in terms of kids and I think kids' parents wanting to see chicken nuggets on the menu.
Well, there's nothing wrong with a chicken nugget, right?
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I mentioned in the preamble here that we've streamlined ordering this year. Aimee, tell me a little bit of how that all works.
Well, the streamline of the ordering system is something, even as a parent, I'm still sort of exploring with myself.
Right.
So I know that this one is something that the province has talked a lot about. I think when it comes to the ordering platform, I'm still trying to figure that part out myself in terms of like how that's working for parents. I know a lot of feedback was coming on difficulties understanding how to order and different aspects, but I can't entirely answer that. I'm not entirely sure how the ordering platform has been streamlined, so to speak.
Now, we're kidding about chicken nuggets earlier, but this menu, there's a lot of healthy options out there, and I think the important part is that a lot of kids are getting access to meals that may not have had access to meals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the real impetus for this program really came from a place of recognizing the importance and impact of providing more equitable access to nutritious food at school. So the school environment is a place where many students are every day. We know that so many students are going to school hungry for different reasons, and that the school is a place where we can offer nutritious food every single day. And from an affordability perspective, I think, the province was really thinking about this program as one way in which households can potentially save costs on lunch and also save time. Like any parent knows, it's a lot to make lunches. And so that was sort of where this came from. And I think from our perspective at Nourish Nova Scotia, there is so much research out there that shows us the benefits of school food programs in the context of providing nutritious foods for kids.
Aimee, I can tell you when this was announced that the expansion was happening into middle and then into junior high schools, people in my circle were like, "Oh, what about high school?" So, as I understand it, are there plans to expand this even further and expand it into high schools?
Yeah, the expansion to high school will be coming. I think when the program was launched, and certainly the province of Nova Scotia was looking at what was happening in other jurisdictions across the country, the intention has always been for every school in the province, public school in the province, to have this program. It was originally announced as a 4-year program, and we are now in phase 2, expanding that to middle and junior high. And so I wouldn't be surprised if the rollout is actually a bit quicker than 4 years, like say 3 years. Now, that's not a commitment I'm making on behalf of the province, but I think we'll see it quicker than 4 years, that this will be across the whole province.
Are you using this phase 2, this expansion in the middle into junior high schools, sort of as a template for the eventual expansion into high school? Are you taking lessons learned from this and going to employ them when you roll it out to the other students?
Yeah, and I think like everything that happens in this program is an opportunity to learn about what can be done differently and better. I think there's a lot of things that are going to have to be considered. Older kids have bigger appetites. The portions might need to be different. I think there's going to need to be more engagement on the menu and just ensuring that the menu items there are appealing for all ages and continue to be adapted. But I think, yes, there's lots of learning going on. I think one of the biggest shifts that continues to happen is like the facilities that exist to be able to procure, cook, keep warm, and serve this many meals to this many students. We've heard a lot of feedback around temperature of the food and texture, and all those things are being worked on. But the reality is we really need to grow this sort of system of school food infrastructure that can enable this many meals to be served. And so all of that growth is just going to take time.
And still a commitment to on the funding, obviously coming from the province, but this pay what you can model, is that going to continue moving forward?
That's hard to say. I mean, I think I think we're learning from that as well. I mean, there was another report that showed how many parents are paying at this moment, and the percentage is very low, or at least paying in full versus partial versus no payment. And I think that might be for all sorts of reasons. In many other jurisdictions, parental contributions are an important part of the program, but at the same time, these programs work because they are supported by the province as well as federal contributions. And so that funding support is foundational to these programs being successful.
Aimee, appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That is Aimee Gasparetto from Nourish Nova Scotia. We're going to stop and take a break here on the Todd Veinotte Show. On the other side of it, Halifax housing construction at record levels, but challenges still remain with building. We had a conversation with Premier Houston earlier this week. I asked him directly, I said, it's great to have all of these targets, but are there enough hands to build the houses that you want to build? I think the next guest is probably going to be plugged into the industry. I know he is, and may have an answer to that, and that would be the president and the CEO of the Construction Association of Nova Scotia. Duncan Williams will be your guest. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. It's a Thursday edition of the program. It's kind of a wet day out there, and I know there's a lot of you listening to us out there on the construction sites that are curious about this next segment that we're going to do. This was kind of born of one of the answers I received from the Premier when he was in the studio earlier this week, and we hear an awful lot of these. So we have to build more houses. We have to build. We're going to build, social housing. We're going to build community housing. We're going to build prefab housing. Then we heard that the tenants or the tenders went out and they came back and they were too high. So then we have to reconsider. And then we heard from the feds that they're going to build all kinds of houses. And I asked the Premier the question, and to be fair to the Premier, he kind of answered it ish. And I said, well, that's it's great. And I don't think anybody's going to argue that we need housing, but are there enough hands out there to build the housing? And we know that there's been a traditional shortage of skilled labor on here. So I'm very pleased to welcome into the show today to give us a little perspective on the whole thing. Somebody that's out there and doing it, the president and CEO of the Construction Association of Nova Scotia. That's Duncan Williams. Duncan, how are you?
Good afternoon, Dan. I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm great. So I guess that's the first question. Are there enough hands out there to accomplish all of these lofty goals that the politicians are setting out?
Yeah, it's often the question of the day, and depending on what projects are happening at any given time, the answer is no, there's not enough hands, and then there are times when there are lulls and there's excess capacity. But we are seeing that fluctuation less and less and less. There's more of a demand than there is a supply, and it's more chronic now than it's probably been in many, many decades.
And is it getting any better, Duncan? I know we've talked about labor for a number of years here, and you look around, you see all the cranes. I look out my window, I see all these big construction sites. Is it getting any better?
Again, it ebbs and flows, but in general, it's not getting better yet. Right now, what we are doing is trying to redress decades of neglected number of levels of government, to be honest, in terms of training and capacity building and so on. So, looking at training capacity at our colleges, looking at direct entry, trying to promote the trades. We've had 2 decades really of encouragement to go to university and not pursue trades. So, we're trying to undo some of that stereotypical considerations around trades is not for people who are on an academic path. I would argue completely differently. It's a great option for a lot of folks that love to work with their hands, enjoy working with complex problems, and love seeing a legacy of the work they did.
I can put my hand up with that because I remember very distinctly being in high school, and it might have been more than 20 years ago, but I won't give that away. And being told, no, don't go to the trades, Dan, because they're full and they're not taking apprentices, and you'll be better off learning computers.
Yeah, and that certainly was the case. When I moved to Nova Scotia in 1998, there weren't any cranes in Halifax. There weren't many cranes in any part of the province at that point in time, and we had, probably over a decade of that. Starting in 2011, after the big economic crisis in 2008, we started to see that change dramatically, and it's been a steady trajectory since. And that's, in part due to the fact that we tried to turn the tides. The Ivany report that came out in 2012, I believe it was, which said, we had to do things differently. It was entitled Now or Never. And it really was a wake-up call for Nova Scotia that we do have to pay attention to what we're doing as an economy, and we have to create an environment where investment is attracted here. Throw in the fact that we've also seen a significant surge in population, partly due, in large part due to immigration, which is a good thing. The challenge being with the immigration policy, it's not put enough emphasis on bringing in folks who can build housing and infrastructure projects, more so put the emphasis on folks that need it. And there's a very, very distinct difference between the two. So we have to be looking at immigration from a practical point of view and understanding the constraints that go with it. And right now, the last numbers we saw, 3% of 500,000 people coming into Canada had skilled trades experience. So it doesn't take long to do, or hard to do the math and say 15,000 extra tradespeople across the country cannot build the infrastructure, schools, roads, bridges, highways, housing that we need for the other 485,000, let alone our own natural growth as a country.
Have you obviously have had conversations with the province about this, and we know that the immigration policy, both at the federal level and here in Nova Scotia, the Premier has been very clear he wants to continue to grow the population of this province. Have they reached out to you? Have you raised these concerns and hope to guide the immigration policy moving forward, that we do put more of a focus on welcoming those with a skilled trade into the province and give them priority?
Yeah, Dan, actually, the province through immigration population growth have been absolutely phenomenal in Nova Scotia to work with. And I can honestly say that. And I've worked with a lot of government departments across this country for decades. They've done a great job. They're pulling out every stop they have. Our big challenge is, frankly, it's at the federal level, where we have blunt force policies that are archaic and a point system that does not reflect our current realities. And what I mean by that is, and this is not a denigration to folks with a PhD, but if you have a PhD in whatever field, you're in way quicker than somebody who can actually build the infrastructure that PhD person may need to live, get health care, put their kids to school, etc. So we've seen some movement on the federal government's part around that, but there are still a lot of restrictions around the type and hours of work, the nature of the immigration, and then the long tail on just trying to get somebody who has been identified as being qualified, capable, competent, and able to make the move to Canada. We're still seeing very long tails on getting those individuals from point A to point B, which is a working role here in Nova Scotia.
Duncan, we know that affordability is an issue. It faces everybody. I've taken calls from people that are working on those construction sites where the cranes are that you mentioned, that say that it's a pretty terrible world where I'm building apartments that I can't afford to live in.
Yeah, and part of that is global economics. Part of it is created. So what I mean by that is, various levels of government, municipal, provincial, and federal. Our estimates are between 30 and 36%, depending on what part of the country you're in. The cost of building and the cost of what's passed on to the end consumer are fees, carrying charges, deed transfer taxes, all kinds of things that really don't add a whole lot of value, but they're all added into the total. And then when you actually look at the time frame around permitting processes and then the length of time that I have to carry a project before I actually even see a dollar of rent, it could be 2, 3, 4 years at times where I'm paying interest on the money that I'm already leveraging to construct those properties and those facilities. So we have to take a deeper look. The industry is doing its part in terms of trying to find productive ways of increasing efficiencies, et cetera. But what we need to do, instead of new programming being the announceable, is take a deep dive, and there seems to be a lot of resistance across all levels of government to do that and to truly understand. And the first response we get is, well, somebody's got to pay for this.
Right.
Well, we also have to understand, do we need to do that anymore? Where we have 4 or 5 inspections on a property where somebody has to get aboard of a vehicle to go do that, and it delays projects. We should be using modern technology and still maintain good standards, but there's far more efficient ways. And in fairness, the province has been really good at looking at those things, and they are trying to work with industry. But we are also, trying to peel back an onion that's been built for the last 30, 40 years, where we had traditionally high unemployment and, frankly, protectionist mechanisms built in. So undoing some of that takes time.
Duncan, I hear from people on the open line a lot saying, well, why don't the rich developers just pay a higher wage? Is it just that simple?
No, it's not. I'd love to say it is. There are definitely employers out there. I won't say there are employers that are in the construction industry or developers. There's a cross section that need to do better. But the reality is, we have a vacancy rate of probably 3,000 positions right now in the province. So natural supply and demand laws have prevailed, and we have seen dramatic increases in wages in construction over the last several years, especially in the compulsory certified trades and apprenticeable trades. There's no question about that. So employers that are supposedly lowballing on wages, I would really challenge that accusation. I'm sure there are a percentage like in an industry, but the reality is, factually, it's just not true. And you can look at the statistics that show the average income is well above the mean for construction workers across the board, especially when you're looking at the certified trades, compulsory certified trades like electricians, plumbers, etc. They make well above the average income in Nova Scotia.
Duncan, we're out of time. I appreciate yours, sir.
Thank you, Dan. Anytime.
That is Duncan Williams, the president and the CEO of the Construction Association of Nova Scotia. We're going to take a break. Blake's going to update us on what's going on in the news. We've got labor peace at Dal, but is there labor peace at SMU? Part-time faculty have voted in favor of a strike. President of the union representing them, CUPE 3912, Lauren McKenzie, your guest. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. We're almost there. We're rolling through a Thursday, and it's almost the weekend. You can almost taste it, right? It's almost there. We like to call it Friday Eve around here for a reason, because fun stuff always happens on the days that we call Eve, right? Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, Friday Eve. Lots of fun. Anyway, still to come on the show, we're going to, of course, continue our look at labor situation. We'll do that in a couple of seconds here, this time at a different university in Nova Scotia. The weather, we've been talking about the weather. My goodness, we've been talking about the weather a lot, and it's raining now, and I know that's a lot of good news for people out there that are producing food for us. And one of those crops, I think, that we talk a lot about when we get closer into October is the pumpkin crop. And roasted pumpkin seeds. I can just taste them now, right? Isn't that the best part about cleaning out the pumpkin? Vanessa's saying, oh, yeah, it is. But, of course, we're not just talking about the little pumpkins here. We get big pumpkins in our province. And the family that's behind the big pumpkins in Nova Scotia is the Dill family. Danny Dill's going to join us in a few minutes' time here to tell us a little bit about what's going on out there and what kind of impact the weather this year's having on those giant pumpkins. And maybe he'll trade us a seed recipe. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, we talked about this earlier today. The Dal strike over. There's labor peace in Dalhousie. Deal done at Dal, I called it. But labor situation in the university sector in Nova Scotia, particularly here in Halifax, might not all be done. And we could be facing another disruption, this time at St. Mary's University. Very pleased to welcome into the program today to talk to us a little bit about it is the president of CUPE 3912. That's Lauren McKenzie. Lauren, how are you?
Hi, Dan. I'm great. How are you?
I'm glad you could spend some time with us. I know you're very busy. As I understand it, there may be, and I know there's still lots of time left, but there may be some labor unrest at St. Mary's. Tell me a little bit about part-time faculty and the latest vote.
Well, thanks, Dan, for giving us the opportunity to speak to you and your listeners today. It's been a long year for us, the negotiating committee, a meeting with the employer to try to hash out a fair deal.
Right.
We are looking for, we understand what's going on in our economy and in our society, and we've really spent a lot of time consulting with our membership. What are the critical pieces here so that they can continue to deliver the excellent quality of education that they do here in Nova Scotia. I mean, really, it's world-class education here.
Lauren, how many members are we talking here? These are part-time instructors at the university, correct? How many members are we talking?
Well, just to give you a quick overview, 3912 represents part-time academics. Now, that includes part-time faculty. It also includes teaching assistants, markers, demonstrators, also names like independent course appointees. And we represent members across 4 institutions here in Halifax, NSGEU, the Mount, Dalhousie, and St. Mary's. So our members we're about 5,000 strong. And at St. Mary's, we have upwards of 150 members of part-time faculty. That does not include our TAs at St. Mary's, excuse me.
So what's the main sticking points? You said you've been negotiating with the university now for over a year. Well, what are we stumbling on?
Yeah, well, I think everyone is probably familiar with discussions around wages, adjustments to wages for inflation, cost of living, etc.
Right.
But that's not all that is critical to our members. Job security is it's equally as important. Our members are very precarious workers. They have no more than a term of job security. And our members are often very long-term employees of the universities. So that means we have members who have worked for 20, upwards of 30 years at these academic institutions with no more than 8 to 12 weeks of job security at a time.
That's not a good way to live.
No.
Wow.
No, our members, and we don't get involved in education as a side job, as a gig, right? So trying to sort of characterize part-time faculty as, folks who want to pick up a course here or there, it just doesn't represent our members. Our members are dedicated educators. They're dedicated to their own fields, their own discipline, and have spent, 10, 15, 20 years getting to a point where they can be trusted with the young minds of our society today. So they're really serious professionals, yet they are treated as if they are gig workers and as if they are disposable.
As I understand it, talks hit an impasse last Thursday. Where are we at? What's next?
Mm-hmm. So what's next? We're really struggling, Dan, in some ways, because we want the university to engage with us and to negotiate with us on these 2 issues of job security and wages. And the university, the employer, has essentially told us they will not engage on any conversation around job security, period. And that is not acceptable to us. So we really implore the university to continue to look at their practices as an employer, and not just an employer, but as an institution that has a huge impact financially and culturally in our region. We want them to look at the impact of our institution, look at the value that our members bring to the institution, seeing as our members teach 30%, upwards 30% of courses at St. Mary's. Look at all of the interaction, all of the meaningful work that is done with tuition-paying members of our academic community, and to see that those folks deserve some job security, they deserve livable wages. We have a meeting set with the employer, what's called a Day 13 meeting. It's coming up on Monday, October 6th. Mm-hmm. We hope that during this time, the employer will reconsider and will come to the table ready to make a fair deal. I just want to be very clear. We are looking for a fair deal. That is not a we're not looking for a cushy deal. We're not looking for an exorbitant deal. We are looking for a fair deal.
Now, Lauren, 87% strike mandate handed to you by your members. When is the students want to know, when is the earliest that if things don't change, you could hit the picket line?
Mm-hmm. Well, technically we're looking at, I believe the 7th of October if our Day 13 meeting fails, and the no board report is filed by the conciliator,
right,
it would put us in a position to legally strike at that time.
Keep us in the loop, okay, Lauren?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Dan. Thanks for your time, and thanks to your listeners.
Lauren McKenzie is the president of the union representing part-time instructors at St. Mary's University, 150 of them, teaching 30% of the classes, 87% voting in favor of a strike. That could happen as early as October 6th. So if things don't change, and we hope they do, we could certainly see another university with picket signs in Halifax by the middle of next month. We're going to stop and take a break here on the program. We're going to come back. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to have a conversation with the, can I call him the Pumpkin King? I probably can call him the Pumpkin King, because when it comes to pumpkins, particularly the big ones, the name Danny Dill rings supreme. But farmers across the province dealing with the same conditions you and I are, and what does that mean for the pumpkin crop this year? Are we going to see jack-o'-lanterns on doorsteps? Are we going to see those mammoth pumpkins that the Dill farm produces out at the agricultural fairs? Danny Dill, your guest when we return. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. Just a few minutes left in this, the Thursday edition of the program. We've been talking about rain. We've been talking about farming. We've been talking about impacts of rain and farm and dry conditions. And, of course, we're getting into that month where we start to see the orange gourds start to show up at the stores and on people's patios and on their front steps. And when I think pumpkins, there's really only one person I think of in Nova Scotia, and that is our next guest, and that is Danny Dill. Danny, how are you?
Well, for the most part, I don't know, with the year we're having, but,
right,
well, everybody else too, of course.
I know. It's tough, isn't it? This year's been a tough year.
Yeah, there's been a few of them. I mean, I just don't, the last 5-7 years, it's just, we've been through everything. There's only one thing left we haven't gone through, and that's a tornado.
Right.
I mean,
and let's hope
hurricanes,
that doesn't happen, right?
Well, I know, but the hurricanes got us one year early in September.
Right.
2 years ago, we were flooded out, the floods and the washouts. And then, here we go right to the other level, 360 degrees to a drought. I mean, we're going into our fourth month.
Right. Obviously, drought conditions not conducive to growing gargantuan-sized pumpkins.
No. I mean, like, pumpkins are basically 90% water to begin with.
Right.
So thus it takes a lot of water. And you water the best you can, but there's nothing like a rain. I just don't know. My dad said it in his day. We used to, get them nice soft rains at night, and everything would be just flourishing the next day, and then the sun would come out and dry things up, and everything just kind of went in harmony. But since that time, something's knocked Mother Nature out of harmony, which, of course, climate change.
Right. Danny, you obviously in your family, your father before you, are synonymous with growing these giant these pumpkins, these Atlantic giants.
Mm-hmm.
I obviously you started them this year. Did you get any success at all growing big ones?
Well, yeah. I mean, we start them every spring as usual, and our springs are later starts for the last few years for some reason. We just don't have the spring we used to, but I find things balance out because we're having much better September and Octobers.
Right.
Great better weather and heat. Frost is staying away. So, yeah, we got off to a, normal start. And then come, 1st of June, it's just like somebody turned the top off. So you think, oh, no, we'll be all right. Wait for a week, 7 days, 10, it'll rain. No, didn't rain. So, I thought, this is not going to be good. And anyhow, going as far as the giant pumpkins, they're only about half the size here like they were this time last year. Like, I'm thinking 400, 500-pound range, which is big to some people, but, last year we had ones over 1,000 pounds at this time. And, it's affected a lot of growers, right through Canada, other parts, but I know there's a couple giants out there, even in Nova Scotia this year. But however, they grow maybe just the one or two plants, and they really baby them, and, they can maybe give them a lot more water.
Right. How about the pumpkin crop itself, Danny? I know that many people look forward to seeing them this time of the year. What can we expect? Are we going to see a lot less this year or smaller pumpkins?
That is $1 million question in a way. I mean, I just don't know. I'm thinking you better get them now when they start coming out. Because I think by mid-October, things could get pretty sketchy.
Right.
And, I mean, of course, you have your last-minute, pumpkin grinner buyers. I get them just a couple of days before. And, I'm trying. I'm sourcing out anywhere I can get some pumpkins now because some of our varieties just didn't make it. We've got other ones back there that still might not be ready in 2 or 3 weeks. But, of course, the sizes are going to be down in a lot of the stuff. I mean, there's a variety we grow. It's called Solid Gold. Your jack-o'-lantern type. Beautiful pumpkin, 30, 40-pound range. This year, they're around 15 to 20, but, it's still a good-sized pumpkin.
Yeah, for sure.
But some people come here because they know they want to get the big ones. Not the Atlantic Giants, but the bigger jack-o'-lantern types that you wouldn't see at a grocery store because, they just bring them in by the bin, and they're all basically the same size.
Danny, you mentioned varieties, and earlier this week we had a conversation with the good folks over at the Kentville Agricultural Center who are looking at berry crops and looking at different varieties. Is that something you're going to have to do now with climate change and the way that the seasons are changing on you?
Well, you know what hit me this year? Never thought about it. See, there's so many varieties today on the market.
Right.
Back in Dad's day, there was only about kind of half a dozen of these jack-o'-lantern type pumpkins. Your small pie pumpkin size to your jack-o'-lantern type. Well, now there's 100 varieties and types. And saying that, some of them only take 90 days from seed to maturity. And not necessarily you're going to get big ones in them number of days, but still maybe big enough for market. So I'm thinking next year I might start leaning in that direction, ones that are 90-day, ready in 90 days as opposed to these ones that take 120 days. So that's a good 30 days a month. And it happened this year. We had a couple of varieties back there. It's a nice white pumpkin. It's about 5 to 8 pound size. Nice, like people, you guys were saying, decorating their front steps, all that. And they did well. And so did a few other ones that just take that 90 days. Because I guess they get out of the gate fast.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and less time to get wilted on the vine.
Well,
right?
You're decreasing the risk, and also what I noticed this year, like the first kind of a smaller field we planted, that got rooted in pretty good, got established and got going. And we did get some pretty big types out of there that we have now, and we got more. They're not quite ready, but they will be ready, and a few other things there. But then back on the other bigger field, maybe we didn't get them planted till 2 weeks later, and that's, like I said, it's a hit and miss back there. So a lot of it's always got to do with timing too.
Right. Well, Danny, I know that it's been a disappointing season for you, and we wish you all the very best, and hopefully next year you'll get some rain.
Well, look, thank you very much. And I mean, everybody's been great, and I guess the only last thing I can add, anybody that likes dry squash, they certainly should have dry squash this year.
Oh, Danny, always the comedian. I appreciate it, sir.
All right, Punkin' Man Dan.
Have a good one. Oh boy, that's Danny Dill. It never ceases to amaze me, right? Like he's got every reason in the world to be just down on everything because the whole climate is conspired against him this year. Yet he's still trying different things and still trying to have a smile on his face. And boy, if you can get a dill pumpkin on your deck, on your patio, man, Danny works hard, and all our farmers work hard to produce stuff here, and it's been a really tough year. Vanessa's yelling at me in my ear. I forgot, but we still got time. So it's let me tell you this, that the Halifax Mooseheads are going to kick off their season this weekend on the road in Charlottetown on Friday night, and then the home opener on Saturday at Scotiabank It'll be a rock star of a game. It'll be electric there, and we have a couple of tickets available if you want to go. Caller number 9. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. A pair of tickets to this weekend's Mooseheads game down at the Scotiabank as we kick off the next season. Thank you to each and every one of you who picked up your phones and dialed the numbers today. You make my day each and every day that you do that. Thanks to people like Danny and all of our guests who took time out of their busy schedules to join us, to answer my questions and maybe give us just a little bit more knowledge. I truly appreciate it. It'd be an awful 3 hours of boring radio if you had to listen to me talk all the time, wouldn't it? We've got a big show planned for you, the Fabulous Friday edition. Tomorrow, of course, Tim will be here to talk about the goings-on in Ottawa. Alistair will join us as well to give us a look ahead into the weekend forecast. Cecil will be here to take a look at the Blue Jays. Oh, he's just hating it. I know he's hating it. Those Red Sox just disappeared, and so did Cecil's hopes for the. Oh, anyway, we'll dig into it with Cecil as all part of that program. Thank you to Vanessa Vandenez on the other side of the glass, who does a fantastic job. Can't say it enough. Doing what she does and keeping this show up and running and yelling in my ear and making sure that we get all the things done that we get done. All right, everybody, I hope that you get out there. I hope it's not too wet, but we do need the rain, and I hope that you get a chance to out and see some of the wonderful things we have here in Nova Scotia. We are so lucky to live where we live. Until tomorrow, everybody, be well, and remember, be kind to one another.